Well, hello everyone. You hear show right here is like I talk about right here. I'll talk about for business, son. And basically, that you see right here is that this right here will be like a sketch right here. I went put together right here, talk about say for business, son. And basically, what does that basically mean right here? And I also think about a number of ideas. One of those ideas will be I talk about for trains and. If anybody were warned, or yeah, trains that you've been into them since I was young, and I also think about as to a number of things that likely that the parents may have told you as to where that yeah that back around around the middle of the night or so that you used to hear that train used to go by or say that the river it's like the Missouri River or so those couple of years ago and think about as to where a number of things that you may have missed whenever you were a kid as well and as well as for carry on and you're like Warren to where what does that usually mean like for carry on and sometimes that you're like Warren to where yeah we've heard that story before as to where that yeah if you're at the train station or bus station or wherever and then by the time your your ride arrives and it's like well are you coming along like well to think here if I'm like well that's and no about well either that either people probably say that if you're ready or you don't ride with strangers whichever it is but on your hand that you see right here is that I here is a sketch right here. This was right here is a sketch right here of me, and thinking necessarily to where anybody probably say, what types of entertainment are you into, son? So if anybody like Warren to about talk about with son here, and you're like Warren to where anything like toys or something like that that you may have had down in the basement that you like playing with, and one of those was like a train set. And some of the ideas that I may have gotten, from my parents as well, talking about is like that anything maybe carnivals or festivals that I used to go to and thinking about is to where you have like a little model airplane or maybe if it's a train set or anything like that. And sometimes you're like weren't, where whenever you think about that, it seems like a lot of times that people I say that yeah that you used to hear that train going by, and some kids that they're going to be that curious and they're going to want to know is like whatever happened to that, or yeah that you seen some trains or some some places around there down at the riverfront or so that look like where that used to be this used to be that, but then knowing about if they decided to close it or it's like it was out of commission, there for a while, whichever it is. But a few things that you may have missed whenever you were young. You may remember some things, but then you're like wonder whatever happened to this or that. And have right here is like with the train though. And I know that whenever I was young, that used to be into those a lot of times. But if anybody were warned, where yeah, if you get up around a certain time in the night or say early in the morning, just to go to work, that every time I get up around that time of the night, that time in the morning, that you usually think about is to where like the trains. And think you about like one or two. Yeah, that's usually around the time between 2 and 3 o'clock, or maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, that you would hear one of those trains like, and then you would hear the trailers that they would be carrying would sound like, and then and so it's like, yeah, that have right here is an example right here. This was right here was me, picking up the train right here for anybody that they weren't, or the yeah, for like business son, is that thinking that to where that if this was right here, if anybody were like weren't, where that you have one of these model trains and like wanting to want to pick it up and want to look at it. It's like if it was a model, but then knowing about what the real train and like think about you would maybe like to ride one, like knowing about riding the train. But then if anybody like weren't, well, you like think about it's like where you think that you wouldn't want to drive if you were to own one. But on your hand, that you see right here is that this right here is an example right here of me with the train track. So I kind of got this story from whenever I was young, is toward that, yeah, that anything that I would think about, I would kind of try to draw it out, and if anybody weren't to it, really, I'm like, it really just does not make no sense because that for any type of a action phrase as toward the train what, I'm like the man who was what you call the in the caboose or something like that. So if I were to write a story and think about it's like the train, it's like this is a model train or an actual train factory that the person works for. So I'm sure that whenever we're kids, we're like weren't. Where a number of things that we probably say is that if we're like talking about is like for working at a business and thinking that it's to where that for any type of trains like you're like weren't to where you get an idea based on it's like that for yeah you remember the sound of that train and then since you growing up and then thinking about it is toward it a few things that more likely that you may think about and then you're like one until you still remember that train. I'm like that some of the memory of course is kind of faded out. I kind of call faded out to where you can barely remember it, but then sometimes you can kind of remember it. But the sound of a train especially, and I know each time I would hear the sound of a train, it was you ride around late at night, and anybody like Warren to where that yeah that it was loud enough to where a lot of people could probably hear it, especially at night, and especially if it's going to be several thousand several hundred or so a few miles away that you may still be able to hear the sound of that train coming, and you're like Warren to where it's like the train. And I'm not talking about no weather patterns or anything like that, but the type of train to where that the train to where that it's like give you like what you call like the type of a sign and to where that knowing about what time it was and knowing about as to where that kind of gets you an idea about what type of job that you like to have especially. But anyway, I think a few things that more likely may have missed as well. I say for Matthews, like for business son right here. But if anybody were warned, yeah, that almost anything that you're doing and anything that you're thinking about is that why is it that maybe the train is gonna what you call come to your memory, and you're like warned to where that yeah that you had a train set whenever you were very young, and you're like warned to where that anything that you're doing necessarily and thinking about you buy it. Man, if you have like maybe somebody you're younger than the age of 10 or something like that, you're gonna buy something like maybe a train set or something. You're like Warren to where yeah I had one of these whenever I was your age especially. So you're like Warren to where that whenever we're looking at a model train right here that some kids that may warrant tour, is that supposed to give them an idea for what they want to be whenever they grow up, or is it about as to where that they're trying to piece back together the memories? They're trying to piece back together some of the memories that they may have from whenever they were younger as well. So they're like warrant to where that yeah, well it's sometimes it works and sometimes it don't to where that you're trying to remember stuff, so you decided that you want to go ahead and buy one of those toy trains, or maybe if you want to kind of draw out something and kind of think about it as to where from what you remember as well. And I know me that whenever I was young though that I remember the sound of the train, and it was like yeah that people are like Warren to where even while I say with the Disney characters, and you're like Warren to where that yeah that you get any ideas from the Disney characters and thinking about as to who more likely would be operating on a train especially. But each time that, like with any type of steam locomotive, it seems like to where that if we're going to talk about it's like for trains though, is to where that they are like which says the type to where it ships any type of materials, if it's coal or any type of materials like between if it's from state to state or county to county, and you're like Warren tour that like we may have thought about a number of things whenever we were young. If one of those was a train operator, crane operator, or maybe truck driver, any of those other type of career studies, but you're like think about say for business son, it's like knowing about really that whenever that kids that they find out as to where it's something that they can maybe good investment, like you make a good career of their future with, especially. But you have right here is like have right here's the train. If anybody were to ask, it's like really what does trains have anything to do with bills? And you're like Warren Tour. Well, on your hand, that let's think about is to where that around the time that you may have heard those trains, and they more likely would remind you of something, and not really about as to where it's past your bedtime, but one of those could be as to where aren't you supposed to be doing something? You'll be somewhere at a certain time. But anyway, but talk about say for business, son. May 25, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.